It was an interesting system designed by adventurers, developed to convey information easily to one another in case one member was out of sight from the others. Some markings could be made to designate whether there was a threat and how severe it was. Another benefit was that since adventurers developed it, those who weren't associated with them wouldn't know what was being conveyed. This allowed them to secretly leave messages to one another on another business. Such notifications would alert other adventurers whether the establishment was friendly to those part of the Adventurers Guild. Seeing that Celine had alerted them about the situation ahead of them, James could feel a sense of relief wash over his mind. At least we can continue to not worry about monsters, James said. Though dealing with monsters would at least provide some entertainment on his request, Kate said in a voice that made it evident that she was smiling. James shook his head at the comment, knowing that Kate would look forward to such things. Don't get too excited. Suppose we have to head back to Forest City to repair our equipment or deal with one of us getting seriously injured. In that case, we'll either have to give up or go back to the area where we were injured, Raul said. Kate merely nodded her head in agreement to the sentiment, understanding that what she said was slightly foolish. A constant sound that followed them was the crunching of leaves beneath their feet. It was the only music they had access to, breaking up the moments of silence in their group when there wasn't anything to talk about. I feel like this is something that new adventurers don't realize. How there are long moments of silence where no one talks about anything, James thought to himself. Thinking back to when he first became an adventurer, he'd overhear adventurers comment about how it would sometimes get boring while completing a request. It was one of the nice things when returning to the guild. People could relax while listening to the voices of adventurers chatting with one another either in the lobby, dining, market, or other levels where adventurers would socially congregate. But the long requests they were currently taking part in weren't something common for those of the lower levels. They wouldn't need to deal with long periods of silence aside from the sounds of the forest. It wasn't something new adventurers would need to deal with for long periods. As adventurers would gain more experience, they'd learn to adapt. It would then become normal when taking longer requests. For James and his small group, they were used to it. There wasn't any need to mention Mim's group. James looked at the animals that enjoyed their day, sometimes getting into playful fights, which animals tended to do. It brought a smile to James's face to see such behavior. Seeing animals behaving so cutely, James couldn't help but wonder what it was like to care for a pet. He had watched as families would walk their pet animals while they bonded. Sometimes it would be friends talking about school. Unfortunately, James wasn't able to have such a casual lifestyle. Though there were times when he'd see a stray dog that would go through the trash trying to find food. If James had extra food, he'd try to befriend the animal by sharing some. Though the moment I ran out of food, they'd go about their day and take off. James laughed to himself with how disappointed he'd become when the dog would leave. The stray cats were worse, usually taking the food and then running off to their home.